Good morning, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we are talking about Bryan Kohberger. As we know, they have alleged that he stalked the girls. Now we are finding out that he has been direct messaging one of the victims on Instagram through his Instagram account, which has now been deleted since this whole thing came about. But there was a time that I believe I showed you his profile because I found it, his actual profile, not the made up ones that other people started making up, of course. And so we want to dive into this because, as we know, Kaylee Goncalves' dad said there was a connection between the two. He wasn't ready to talk about it yet. And so little by little, more keeps coming out about him stalking the girls. And then to come find out that he actually was direct messaging one of the victims. Let's go ahead and dive into this. So the murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, who has been arrested as of December 30th after a 7-week hunt for the perp in the Idaho 4. And so he is alleged to have been messaging one of the female victims weeks before the quadruple incident on November 13th and sent more direct messages after she ignored him. And so, speaking with People magazine, one police source said Kohberger reached out to one of the 4 University of Idaho students over Instagram repeatedly in an attempt to get her attention. And so, we do know that Kaylee Goncalves' dad said there was a connection between Kaylee and Bryan, but he wasn't ready to talk about it. Could this be the connection? Where it was seen that, hey, he's on her Instagram account. Could that be the connection? That definitely would make sense to me. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Is it Kaylee that's the stalker? They don't name anyone. They just say one of the victims. And with everything we know, Kaylee saying she had a stalker, her dad saying there was a connection he wasn't ready to talk about. Was it Kaylee that he was trying to slide into her DM? I don't know. Let's continue talking about this. And so the source told People magazine he slid into one of the girls' DMs several times, but she didn't respond. Basically, it was just him saying, hey, how are you? But he did it again and again. It is unknown at this time which student that Kohberger sent these Instagram messages to or who the investigator familiar with the case is that spoke to the People magazine. The source, who didn't say whether the woman Kohberger allegedly messaged deliberately ignored him or if the message he sent went into her requested folder from people she wasn't friends with. You know how that goes. And so those messages don't appear as alerts and are harder to see. Truth is, even on Facebook, when someone messages you and it goes into the other folder, you can literally easily miss that message. And so maybe she missed it, never knew about it, or maybe she's like, who's this creeper? I don't know. It could be any of those things, right? And so the Idaho victim, Kaylee Goncalves, she is said to have complained about a stalker in the run-up to this incident, but it's unclear if there's any link between this and her dying, right? We don't know if anything like that is connected. Kohberger, again, a PhD criminology student at Washington State University, was arrested at his family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania on December 30th. He says he is innocent of any of this. And, rest in peace, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. He says he has nothing to do with this. Now, one local enforcement official who has been very close to the case says that evidence against Kohberger is continuing to pile up. The Instagram account in question was viewed by People magazine prior to it having been taken down. Because as I told you, it was up there. I literally saw it. And so I don't know if it's just on private or it's been deleted. Because when I went through his friends list, you can see a lot of Kohberger family members. That to me added up to him having that. And there was only one video on it. Just one video on it that was done before this crime. I think it was actually done in October of 2022, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. And so I've just kind of forgot a little bit. And the Instagram account, it has been taken down, and he had allegedly followed Mogen, Goncalves, and Kernodle. And let me tell you, I don't actually believe that. Because when I followed his account or looked at his account, I didn't see him following those girls. And so maybe they're getting confused on what was coming out. Because there were fake accounts that then started following him. You got to be careful. I don't know why people have this much time on their hands, but they have too much time on their hands. But he is alleged to have followed Mogen, Goncalves, and Kernodle. He did not publicly interact with their accounts at all. In alleged messages sent from the now deleted Instagram, Kohberger appeared to be hoping to get the attention of the victim he was targeting. We don't know who this victim was that he was direct messaging. That is just still for investigative purposes, right? And so we don't really know who the victim is that he was messaging, but they did not respond to the messages for reasons we don't really know. That official who spoke with People, however, asserted that the victim may have completely missed them. They say she may not have seen them because they went into message requests. That's what the source said of the messages. The DMs were allegedly sent in October, just weeks before the November 13th incident. When a person who an Instagram user does not follow back attempts to send a message, it goes to a designated folder called message requests. These requests are located in a different place than typical messages. Even if they see the message, the person who sent it will not know that that message was seen. And so investigators said that they are still trying to determine how aware the victims were of his existence. This is still an ongoing case. It is possible that Kohberger may have become upset by the lack of response. We don't really know that. But that is just a theory of many presented by those who have been following the case. The investigator who spoke with People said there's no indication of that, however. There's no indication that he was getting frustrated with her lack of response. That's what the source said. Even without the indication of frustration, the source said that Kohberger was definitely persistent in the messages to the University of Idaho student. Though it had not been confirmed by police, DailyMail.com in December reported that Goncalves, in the weeks leading up to her death, would beg friends to walk closely behind her at times out of fear of a stalker who would follow her around town. We don't really know how true all of that is. We don't really know Kaylee. We don't know her personality. We don't know anything, but we do know that phone records do show Bryan Kohberger in the vicinity of their home multiple times. We don't know if Kaylee was talking about any of those instances. It is still unknown if Goncalves was the one who Kohberger messaged or if he had stalked her in any capacity. Remember, her dad said there was a connection. We're not ready to talk about it. That could easily mean we saw him in her direct messages. But she never replied. We're not ready to talk about that. I'm theorizing, putting 2 and 2 together to try to make 4. And so that to me, in reporting on this case and following on this case, that to me leaves me to believe that, was it Kaylee that he was messaging, trying to get her attention? Then it goes back to the incel complex, where some experts have identified him to be an incel. You know, someone who has trouble finding a relationship with other women. That can also lead to some of this. And so we don't really know. Kaylee could be referring to him and not know it's him, right? And so we don't know the motive in this case. It has not been shared with the Idaho police at all. And so a lot of this we can only speculate, right? Now, one of the surviving roommates was in the house on the night of this incident and told police that she saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask walking past her as they left the crime scene. That was according to the affidavit. We did find that a knife sheath was recovered from the scene and tested against Kohberger's father's DNA, which linked the Washington State University student to the crime. Let's clear that up. The DNA was the dad, but by all of their research, all of the evidence, all of the video capture, the white car, everything was tied to Bryan. Even though the DNA led to dad, but Bryan was connected to this. Let's make sure that we get that cleared. And so this linked the Washington State University student, Bryan Kohberger, to this crime. And so we don't really know what other evidence they may have. As the affidavit, we do have some. Investigators traced his cell phone pings to a nearby tower in the weeks leading up to this brutal incident. However, some experts have noted that the proximity of Kohberger's school to the off-campus home where the victims lived is an explanation for the pings, because it was only 10 miles away. David Wilson, a professor of criminology who I talked about yesterday, he stated that Moscow isn't so far away from Washington State University, so it would be natural that there would be some of those towers that might ping. There are just 8 miles between WSU campus in Pullman, where he studied, and Moscow, Idaho, where the murders took place. There will be a defense, Wilson said of the defense. Their defense will be like, hey, that does not mean it was him. And to me, that's a credible defense. He has not entered a plea. But did they find anything in this white car of his? Because we do know that they did take that white car and drove it all the way back to Idaho, or towed it all the way back to Idaho. Now, his next hearing is in June towards the end. He is also facing 1 count of felony burglary for entering the home without permission. And really, let me know, do you think he direct messaged one of the victims? If so, which one? The only one any of us who have been following this story can really throw out there is Kaylee, the one who complained about a stalker, the one where the dad said there is a connection, but we're not ready to talk about that. I mean, really, what else can you really say? Because it is said that he literally continued to message the girls on Instagram, or one of the victims on Instagram. The investigative source said he was persistent, right? 2 weeks before this incident of November 13, he is said to have been sending a series of messages on Instagram. Now, at first, media reports said we don't find social media on him. We don't find any accounts. But I found the Instagram account. So he did have an Instagram account. There is credibility behind that. Obviously, did I see him start the Instagram account? No. I'm going off of how long that Instagram was up and all the people who he was following. He was following a lot of Kohbergers, which is family. And so, to me, I believe there is some credibility behind this, right? I personally think it was Kaylee, but we will find out more. What do you think? Let me know in the comments your thought about this. My friends, thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. My whole focus is to be a voice for the victims, to keep you updated on what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. This guy sends a direct message. She ignored it, allegedly. We don't really know. But if she had actually paid attention, could there had been a hey, this guy was possibly the one stalking me, right? We don't really know. We don't know if there was other messages that she didn't read because it was in the other file. We don't really know much about them, right? And so, hey, if this is the type of content you like to follow, hit that subscribe button, click on that like, and click that notification bell. That way you get notified whenever I go live. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Be safe out there, my friends. Be careful, be alert, be aware. Until next time, peace, be careful.